It's so nice to be here, nearby you, Joey. I had been all my life nearby you. When I was a teenager and I opened the first bodybuilding magazine, I saw your smiling face, and that was the beginning of the inspiration. I was dreaming to meet you one day, and the dreams came through in Gothenburg in the middle of the 80s, and from the very first moment I realized how much power is in yourself and how much power and generosity you give to everybody. I was gifted, I am gifted with your friendship and with your support. You come to Spain many times, so many good memories related with the sport, related with life, related with beautiful feelings. I remember one night in Madrid visiting a church, a very historical church, 1,000 years old. You fill the church with your personality, with your questions, with your polite way to learn about other cultures. Everybody in all the corners of the world admires you. I mentioned in the dinner today that I had been privileged to meet you and your brother, Ben. And that through this acknowledgement, I had been visiting over 150 countries in the world. Countries in which there are different religions, different politic things, different races. There is something in common. In all these countries, there are people that love and respect you very much. People that are proud to ask for you. People that are asking me. I remember in the forest in Paraguay, a young teenager with eyes like plates asking me, "You know Mr. Weider? Are you talking with him?" That is the same in Africa, in Asia, everywhere. I am proud and I am a privileged person in life, having you as a mentor and having your guidance and your friendship. We love you, Joe.
Okay, I discovered bodybuilding in 1956. I was 14 years old, and the first magazines I read were Iron Man and the Weider magazines of that time. And that was really the first time I heard about Joe. And, you know, I didn't meet him until about 1966. I met him in California through a mutual friend, Art Zeller. And what always, to this day, Joe has, and from the beginning, is just this deep love of bodybuilding and just enthusiasm that seems to be boundless. There's no, you talk to him about bodybuilding today just like I did 40 years ago, and his eyes just light up. And we talk about the great champions and ideas on training and ideas on nutrition. You know, Joe is just, he's lived his life in a certain way and completely dedicated to this endeavor. And it's just a pleasure to first learn about him as a teenager, but even better to actually be a friend for 40 plus years. And I worked for him for 6 or 7 years, and he was a fabulous mentor. I was a photographer. And one of the reasons I'm standing or sitting here today is because of Joe's influence on me both as a teenager and as a photographer, and just a general life influence. It's great. Happy birthday, Joe, 90th. I'm just so happy to be here to help you to celebrate that.
Well, when I first met Joe, I was invited out to visit the Weider Center by Mr. Bill Reynolds at that particular time, and having arrived there, I was just totally blown away by Joe's generosity and so forth. And he said to me, "I would like the opportunity to come and train in California and be signed under me." And of course, being from a small town in South Carolina and being right there in front of the Master Blaster, of course I had to say yes. And so I did. I arrived in California in 1983 to be tutored by Joe, and also to learn more as it relates to how to get to the next level. I had just won the World Championships and the NPC Nationals. And one of my funnest stories is Joe. You know, he's a very humble man and a very gracious man. I recall going to a restaurant on a particular day, and he had invited me out, so we were having lunch there. And I get up to get ready to walk out of the restaurant, me and Joe, and all of a sudden both my legs cramped. Joe stopped everything he was doing and got down on his knees and massaged my legs to get the cramps out of it. I mean, here Joe Weider is massaging my legs, you know, Lee Haney, in front of everybody. He didn't care who it was. And I was so blown away from his humility and the fact that he loved his bodybuilders that much to do that sort of thing. So, and not only that, he's played a very important role in helping me when I first got established. One of the things that Joe said to me, well, is there a young lady that you're crazy about, Lee, you know, on the way to California? He said, if you do, why don't you invite her out and bring her with you, because that gives you stability. Well, I've been married to that young lady, which is Shirley Haney now for more than 28 years. So Joe had a role to play at a lot of points in my life. I thank God for him and God bless him. Happy birthday, Joe. Wish you many, many more. God bless you, and thank you for your sacrifice and your generosity in making what we love so much something that has been promoted to the whole world.
Hi, Joe, and happy birthday. You know, the first time I heard of your publications and saw your face was when I was about 10 years old. And I actually sent away and ordered one of your biceps courses and began training with a barbell set. I bought it at Sears Roebuck when I was about 10 and a half years old. So left an indelible impression, and I remember seeing Larry Scott, the first Mr. Olympia, covered on the Wide World of Sports. And it was just such a privilege to begin writing articles for you and then meet you in 1985 and then come on as your editor-in-chief and evolve with the company in 1988. So 15 years working by your side, Joe. It was a wonderful experience. The company grew so rapidly, and being part of what you've helped change the world with physical culture was such an honor and a privilege for me, Joe. I'm hard-pressed to come up with my favorite Joe moment or special moment, because I had so many with you, so many weekends that we were able to work together and do the magazine lineups at the house and the 60th anniversary parties and all the Mr. Olympias. I cherish every one of those moments, Joe, and I thank you for shaping my life, my family's life so directly. And God bless, and many, many more, my friend. Love you. Bye.
Joe Weider as a name, and he had his operation in New Jersey, across the river, and I lived in New York City. Well, the name was magical, but I had not met him. Years later, many years later, in 1979, I met Joe Weider in person at his office in Woodland Hills, and it was a pleasure. My most memorable moment with Joe was meeting him in the conference room and his trying to say, well, now, Chris, we're going to get you on the cover. I was very impatient to be on the cover of the magazine, Muscle and Fitness. So he got me on the cover, and I went to the office and thanked him very much, because that meant a great deal in my career. His is the #1 magazine and means that you have truly arrived in bodybuilding. The other moment was when I won the Mr. Olympia in 1982 in London. I had not gotten the statue of Sandow, and I called and said, oh, Joe, I won, but I didn't get the statue. He said, oh, Chris, I can't believe you didn't get the statue. Come on over. And so I drove to Woodland Hills, and he presented me the statue in person, which meant even more. That's my experience with Joe, and I've known him through the years as Uncle Joe and the father of bodybuilding, and he's inspired me very, very much. It's been a pleasure. Happy birthday, Joe Weider, on being 90 years young. Congratulations.
Yeah. Enjoying yourself. Yes, of course. It's a wonderful evening. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
My name is Terry Todd. I teach at the University of Texas, and my wife Jen and I are the directors of the Joe and Betty Weider Museum of Physical Culture. I first became aware of Joe Weider in the middle 1950s, probably 1956, when I began weight training. And of course, I was always interested in learning what I could about the activity that I was doing. So I began to read his magazines, Muscle Power and Muscle Builder. And since I was a weightlifter rather than a power lifter, I was interested in those magazines because they were filled with information about competitive lifting and also about just training to get bigger and stronger, which is what I wanted. I actually met Joe just a bit later in the middle 1960s when I became the national powerlifting champion. And I remember one particular time when we met, he came out sort of as my guest. I was doing the color commentary for the World's Strongest Man show, ESPN World's Strongest Man, and he came out to the set. And we had a very, very nice time together watching these guys, the big, strong men, doing these, carrying refrigerators and other sorts of things. But if I had to choose one particularly memorable moment or time, it was when I was visiting his office out in Woodland Hills, and we had gone out to have lunch together, and we spent a couple hours talking, catching up. And he asked me, "Have you ever seen that painting of Sid Klein?" Sid Klein was a famous Iron Man back in the middle part of last century. He had a gym for about 50 years in New York City, and he had been an artist's model beginning in about 1925 in New York. And a very famous painter named Bassaran Chambers had done a study of him, sort of a heroic figure study. And I learned of this painting, and I told Joe about it, because what I learned about the painting was that it was going to be sold at auction at Sotheby's. Now, this was at a level of competition that I didn't think I was really prepared to step up to, but I didn't want it to be lost to the iron game. So I told Joe about it, and he said, "I'd very much like to know. I'm happy you told me, and I'm going to look into it." Well, he did look into it, and I knew that when the auction was held, Joe he bought it. But to go now forward a couple of years to my visit to Woodland Hills, he asked me if I'd actually seen it ever. I said, "No, only photographs." He said, "Well, come and look." So we walked in from his office into the back office, and he showed me this painting, and he said, "What do you think of this?" And I said, "Well, it's beautiful, it's wonderful, you know, it's without any question, it's Sid Klein." And he said, "Well, take it home to Texas, take it home for your museum. I'd like to give it to you. I wouldn't have it if it were not for you." So that was something unexpected. It was something that was extremely kind and generous, and as I say, I could not have been more surprised nor more pleased. And that's one of many acts of kindness that he's directed to us over the years.
My name is Jan Todd, and I also teach at the University of Texas, where Terry and I have put together a wonderful archive and museum dedicated to the history of the strength sports. And the first thing I'd like to do here is just say, again, a thank you to Joe and Betty Weider for helping us make our dream come true. Knowing Joe, I guess I started lifting weights in 1975, and I, of course, immediately started looking at the Weider magazines. And I think that, I looked at Muscle and Fitness, and I looked a little bit, Flex wasn't around at that point. But what I really clearly remember was when Shape came out. I remember going to the newsstand and seeing the very first cover of Shape magazine, which had a woman on it who was the Miss America at the time. And I remember what she was wearing. She had on a spandex kind of leotard, which is what all the girls wore in the early 80s. And I remember thinking, my God, thank you, at last we have a magazine for women. And so I was really grateful to Joe for that. And I think Betty actually had a little hand in all of that, but really grateful to him because that magazine was so important in the early 80s and sort of helping to establish the idea that it was okay for women to lift weights. And so I think that's an aspect of his career that he really doesn't get enough attention for, but it was a significant contribution that he made. I mean, he did bodybuilding, but you've got to remember that he really is the guy who also opened the door for women. I think I met him probably the first time when Terry brought him to the World's Strongest Man set, because I was actually there. I used to do some powerlifting and held some world records in powerlifting, so I was there actually doing some exhibitions. And what I remember about that was how kind and courteous he was to me. And I was nobody at that point in my life, but he was just so wonderful to me and made me feel so welcome. And one of the things I'd like to say about Joe, if I may, is that I don't think people quite understand that that's how he is all the time. And I can tell you a sort of a quick story. in 2004, Joe and Betty came to visit us in Texas when they made $1 million donation to our project at the university. And they came down and we had a meeting with the dean and all that. And then we took them out to our ranch outside of Austin, and we spent a kind of really quiet, lovely afternoon out there, sitting on the front porch under the oak trees. And I remember how much Joe loved that. He loved the countryside. He loved being on the porch. And when he was there, he met my mother, who, you know, is my mom and lives with us. And I think what I shouldn't have been surprised, but I'm always touched by the fact that every time we see them since then, they always ask about my mother. And, you know, I mean, he's been a truly successful businessman. He is the father of world bodybuilding, but yet he's also the kind of guy who remembers my mother. And I love him. I love Betty. I am forever grateful to them for all they've done for us in helping us create the Joe and Betty Weider Museum. And I'm just really, really touched to be here tonight. So happy birthday, Joe.
My name is Ed Connors, and I was part of Gold's Gym for 25 years, and Gold's Gym has been around 45, which is also the same number of years of the Mr. Olympia. That's something I didn't realize until tonight. So there's been a wonderful synergy between Gold's Gym and me and Joe Weider. I had a wonderful moment even this week. We went to see Jubilee, and some of the performers came out after the performance, and one of them very touchingly said to Joe, you know, I picked up a issue of Muscle and Fitness 30 years ago. It changed my life. Because of it, I'm now singing and performing at age 50, and I could not have done that if it hadn't been for your help. And I suspect there are millions of people all over the world who are influenced by Joe Weider and his magazines, and a lot of these people who are on the covers are here tonight, and it's just a wonderful memory and a wonderful time. And thank you, Joe Weider.
Hi Joe, Robin here. Thank you for everything. Thank you for making history with 45 years of Mr. Olympia. I'm so happy I can be part of it, and thank you once again. Happy, happy birthday.
Hi, this is a very special evening. You know, I'm Luther Wegner. I really know introduction. The first time I heard about Joe, when I first was collecting comic books, I went to a store. There was a magazine called Muscle Power. Dave Drake was on the cover doing a chest pose. And there was a guy down there, and like in the victory pose, and he had like a mustache. And he said, "The Master Blaster, the founder of bodybuilding, Joe Weider." I said, "Wow!" And he was more like a mysterious guy to me because he was like the father of bodybuilding. So the first time I met Joe, it was 1972 Mr. Olympia competition at Madison Square Garden. I remember seeing Joe walking out, and I said, "Oh my God, this is Joe Weider." He came up to me and he said, "Lou, I'd like you to come to California to train. You could be a superstar. There's only 3 superstars, Frank Dane, Arnold, Franco Columbo. You could be another superstar." And I was so excited because I knew he was going to save my life because I wanted to go to California. And since then, he became almost like a second father to me. And one of my funniest moments with Joe is that one time he came on the set, I was doing the Hulk and everything, and I remember I was in the makeup, and he looked at me, he said, "Are you training hard?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Look at you. You should have trained harder this morning because you need to be bigger." I said, "Okay." So I took all my makeup off, I went to the gym, I kept training, I came back to the set, I was bigger, I was more pumped, and you know, I took Joe's advice. Anyway, 90th birthday, I'm happy to be here, and this will never be duplicated. I'm here with all the champions, and I would say tonight is one of the highlights of my life.
Joe offered me the chance to work with him 20 years ago, and I took the chance with 3 hands. In that time, me and my wife made a great living for ourselves. We owe it all to Joe. Joe first brought me to Woodland Hills. The first thing he said to me, I was a writer, was, "I brought you here for your sarcasm." So I felt good to be wanted. I want to thank Joe for everything, for changing our lives, making them better. Happy birthday, Joe, and many of them.
Hi, I'm Frank Zane, and I've been with the Weider organization for a long time. First encounter with the IFBB was, I think, 1963. I was competing in bodybuilding shows and not doing great with the AAU, and I learned about the IFBB and started entering and did really well and did better and better. And I don't know when it was I first met Joe. It might have been 1964, 65, somewhere around there in Union City, New Jersey. And I think my most memorable moment of Joe was in 1968 when I won the Mr. Universe in Miami, and I'm standing on stage with Joe and Ben, and they're holding up my hand, and Joe leans over to me and he says, "Oh, Frank, always praise me, eh?" And I was wondering what he meant by that, but it was such good advice he was giving me. I didn't realize that basically he's telling me what's the best way to be when I'm talking about Joe. And you know, actually praising Joe is very appropriate because he's a wonderful guy. He's done a lot for me, you know, built me up, made me into the champion, as he used to say, and I thank him profusely for it. So, Joe, happy birthday, and many more. You're a great guy.
I'm just trying to think of when I first met Joe. It was when I wanted to compete in the AAU Mr. America. And Joe said, "You don't want to do that, Larry. You should compete in the IFBB Mr. America." And I didn't dare tell him that, "No, Joe, I want to win the AAU. I wanted to do that all my life." And so that's what my heart is set on, winning that contest. And the IFBB was just a new contest. And so he said, "Well, I'm warning you, Larry, that if you do that, you can't win that because you got to be in good with Bob Hoffman." And he just tried to befriend me. I could feel it, that he was really trying to give me good advice, even though it was his contest. I could still feel the goodness of it, and I just felt like he was giving me good counsel. Well, anyway, I was determined I was going to win the Mr. AAU, so I went up to Bob Hoffman the next couple of weeks later, and to make a long story short, I went up on the stage where he was, and I went up to him and I said, "Mr. Hoffman," you had to call him Mr. Hoffman, because, you know, it wasn't informal like Joe. And I said, "I'd like to enter your contest." And he turned around and he looked at me and he says, "Oh yes, I've seen you in other magazines." I guess I shouldn't put him down, he's not here to defend himself. But the contrast I had between, and then he turned his back on me. And I'm standing on the stage and he's got his back turned to me. And I'm standing there waiting. What to do? I'm just standing there with my mouth open. And finally I walked off because he was just standing there with his back to me. He never turned around and looked at me again. And so I walked off, and then I went home and I thought about it, and I thought, you know something? I asked Joe Weider, and I didn't enter his contest at that time. I didn't. I asked him, and he befriended me. He tried to give me good advice, and Bob wouldn't even talk to me because I had entered Joe Weider's contest. And I said, that does it. That does it. I'm through with AAU. I'm going with Joe Weider. And from that time on, Joe became a good friend, a really good friend. And it wasn't that he was trying to help me to feather his own cap. He was really giving me some really good counsel, good advice. And so we became really good friends. And to this day, still good friends. I think Joe has a lot of good friends because he gives counsel and he really means the best. He loves bodybuilding and he loves bodybuilders and stuff. I'm just one of those that he tries to help. I really believe that. I believe that sincerely.
My grandson.
Delicious dinner. First of all, on behalf of my uncle, Joe Weider, and my lovely Aunt Betty Weider, I want to wish you all a very warm and sincere welcome for joining us in this incredible and unique evening. I don't think something like this has happened as long as we can remember, all these great champions all together like this. So it's really a wonderful thing that we cherish, that you're here to help celebrate the 45th anniversary of the Mr. Olympia and my uncle's upcoming 90th birthday. Joe has spoken to me over the years often and with deep emotion about what it means to him to have been a bodybuilder and what the brotherhood of bodybuilding represents to him, and how he felt at the instant he walked into a gym in Montreal for the first time as a teenage boy, and how he has lived and loved and dedicated his life to that brotherhood. And we speak about this all the time. So your presence here tonight is really the ultimate gift which he will cherish on the occasion of his 90th birthday, and hopefully something you will cherish as well. This is a very special evening, and something hopefully we will all remember for many years to come. After dinner and before dessert, there's a podium and a microphone, and we want to welcome anyone who wants to express some words to Joe, or to express words to your fellow brothers of iron, or talk about what the Olympia has meant to you. Please come up and take a few minutes and share your thoughts between dessert, after dinner and before dessert. Please just help yourself come on up. You don't have to ask. Just make yourself feel comfortable. I just want to start with a quick toast. So, I don't know, do we have our glasses? So, to my incredible uncle, Joe Weider, and my wonderful aunt, Betty Weider, to all the inspiring and incredible Olympia champions, and to our dear friends and family who are here tonight to celebrate this unbelievable evening. Good health, happiness, and may we meet again soon. Happy birthday, Uncle Joe. Cheers. Cheers. Happy birthday, Joe.
Well, all I can say is I'm the happiest man in the world, next to my wife. It's such a great trip for me. As a young boy, at about 9 years, I couldn't find a Bible except I can buy. So what I had to do was go down to the where they destroy the trains. You know, dismantle them, and I had to go down there and pick up the rein, the wheel, and put them all together and take them home for my first training. It weighed about 80, 90 pounds. I was through some street before. Yeah. They don't hear me so good, eh? Ooh. No wonder everybody's so happy. They can't hear me too much. Well, anyways, this has been the greatest adventure of my life. Starting with about $8, and I was an errand boy at 8 to 14, and I got accumulated some money, maybe $10, and I started to want to put out a magazine because I felt so good in my first workouts. I figured that must be good for everybody, not only for me. And I decided I'm going to let the whole world know how great it is to train with weights. Wherever you go, you'll find our methods. That's great. Biggest experience I have in my life. It's beautiful bodybuilders, their women, everybody. Oh, God bless you all. You don't know how happy you make me. I am 90 now, and I'm going to go hit 100. I may be able to press 100 pounds too. God bless all of you. You're still here.
Yeah, you know, I mentioned that if it wasn't for Joe and Ben and what you've created for all us athletes and all your friends and for everyone to experience, it's a great pleasure to be involved, and we appreciate everything you've done. There's no one else like Joe Weider, and that's when you start to bodybuild. I had a dream at 12 years old to be a bodybuilder. I picked up a magazine. I saw a picture of Chris Dickerson, and I said, that's what I want to look like. And is Chris here?
Yeah.
So I said, wow, you know, that's what I wanted to do. So I started my quest at 18, and my dream was to be on the West Coast, coming from Massachusetts, and I was able to meet Joe Weider in 1995. I remember the first time after I won a contest in California, I was able to get a meeting with Mr. Joe Weider, and me at 22 years old, that was like, wow, you know, I'm going to meet like the father of bodybuilding, you know. So I came in your office, and you took one look at me, and you said, you can be a great champion. Just, I didn't have to propose or anything, and you told me, you said, I want to help you become the best, and you brought me to California. You were the reason I came. That's right. And as soon as I moved to California, my career flourished. And now being one of the greats and being a 4-time Mr. Olympia and numerous other titles and living the bodybuilding lifestyle, giving me direction of a journey I could never experience if it wasn't for the sport of bodybuilding. I traveled all around the world. I've seen many cultures because of bodybuilding, and it all comes back to what Joe Weider created, and that was the sport of bodybuilding, to be able to compete for the Mr. Olympia competition. There is no other title that sets the standards as the best bodybuilder in the world, worldwide recognition, and athletes all around the world, and we want to thank you for that. I'm sure all of us competitors here feel the same way. If it wasn't for you, we could never do this, and it's an honor for us to be here for your birthday, Joe, and I appreciate that. And of course, last night's special honor of getting the standout trophy from you and being on stage, and that's why I made you hold that. Like I said, yeah, stand here, touch that sandow, and give it to me for that 4th title. I appreciate that.
It's going to be spread all over the world.
Yes.
Wow, this is a great evening. I have to say I'm very honored to be here tonight, especially for Joe Weider's 90th birthday. This is not about winning the Olympia competition. It's about a man that affected all our lives, because I'm very honored to be here. My wife and I call him all the great current guy champion, because Joe, when Joe was 17, he started his first magazine called Your Fitness, Your Physique. This is 1936. Then he started his barbell company in 1939. Then eventually they started the IFBB organization. And then Joe started the Miss Olympia competition in 1965, where you had one of my favorite guys here, Larry Scott, who started the Miss Olympia, winning the competition. We have all my friends here. But my life would not be where it is now, wasn't for Joe, because as a kid, I used to collect all these Hulk comic books. I used to read Superman comic books. And I remember one time I went to a store. I was trading all these different comic books, and I saw a magazine called Muscle Power. And on the cover was Dave Draper on the cover, and inside pictures of Frank Dane. And I said to myself, wow, there is the Mr. Universe. I was always watching like Miss America, Mr. Universe, but there was the Mr. Universe, and I discovered bodybuilding. But then there was a picture of a guy with a mustache who was standing and said, Joe Weider, the father of bodybuilding. I read this magazine over page to page. I probably wore out the print, but I kept thinking about Joe Weider. I said, this guy is mysterious, because he writes these magazines. As a matter of fact, when I was in high school, I used to read all these magazines. And friends of mine, my peers, would say, why do you read these magazines? Are you gay? Are you queer? All you do is look at all these bodies and everything. But it was my passion. I just loved it. And then in 1972, they had the Miss Olympia competition at the Academy of Music. And I remember seeing Joe Weider for the first time. He walked up to me. He said, Lou, how you doing? He said, I'd love you to come to California. He said, you could be a superstar. Arnold the superstar, Frank Dane the superstar, Franco Colombo. You could be a superstar if you come to California. Back then, I was a very introverted kind of a guy, very quiet, very shy, but Joe changed my life. And he affected all of us. I'm not speaking for myself, I'm speaking for all of us, because of his passion for fitness. He changed our life. It's not about bodybuilding, it's about the lifestyle we live. And I know there was a different time that, you know, people unhappy with their placing, winning, second or third, didn't matter. It's about being part of the bodybuilding world. And Joe in his magazine never made anyone look bad in the picture. He always brought the best out of us. and he gave us life, he gave you hope. That's why, in my opinion today, I think the magazines today have no soul. All of us in this room have soul. We brought personality to the sport, and we made what it is today because of Joe Weider. And I would, if it wasn't for Joe, I'd probably be dead by now, because recently I became a deputy sheriff. But Joe saved my life because I found the path, he got me on that path, and he always wanted the best of me. Every time I run into Joe, he would say to me, "Are you training hard?" I would say, "Yes." But I would say to myself, I need to train even harder. One time I was on the set filming The Incredible Hulk. I remember one time he came on the set to see me, and he looked at me, he said to me, "Are you really training hard?" And I said to myself, with Joe left, I went to the gym and trained twice as hard. Went back on the set, I got a better pump on my body and ended up looking like Jay Cutler that afternoon. I said, great. But he always wanted the best out of all of you. And we're very fortunate to be here tonight, because for this man to be 90 years old, we still have him, we still cherish him, and we have to be thankful for him. And I was extremely honored to be here tonight, Joe, because I love you very much. And my life wouldn't be the same, because I have a wonderful wife and 3 kids. And the same with all of you. We're very honored, and God bless you. Thank you. I hope you have many more years.
Tonight's Joe's night, and I just want to say it's about passing the baton. If there's a theme for this evening, it's that. When I saw a picture of Leroy Saba, that did it for me. This champion, the current champion, saw a picture of me, and that did it for him. Some teenager in some small town somewhere in this country sees a great picture of this champion, and that'll do it for him. We're passing the baton. So I just want to say, it's due to you, Joe. You took me to Bill Pearl's gym. You don't know that. Wow. But I was on the bus in Los Angeles, and I was reading Mr. America, and you did a full-page article on Bill Pearl's new gym on Manchester Boulevard, 1943 West Manchester Boulevard. It's still in my head. I found that man, and he started me training. He watched me lift my first weight. That was Bill Pearl. That's an example of the human connection, and that's what it's about. Joe, I thank you. I love you. Happy birthday.
Don't cry. It's okay. It's okay.
You've been more than an example to me. You've been a loving father, and I really appreciate you. I remember, as everybody here has, remembers when they first, I think it was just the other day, I was telling you, you know something, Joe? It wasn't me that made me popular. It was you. Because wherever I go, they see your magazine. And they know me because you put me in your magazines. And so it was you, and you said, "No, Larry, nah. You're with our dead Larry." I said, "I worked at it." But you put the magic into it. And we both know that these are worldly things. But it isn't worldly when you inspire young kids and give them confidence and that they can believe in themselves, and you can put your heart into something that's good. And you know your Father in heaven agrees with what you're doing, because you're making others believe in you and believe in themselves. I want you to know how much I appreciate you. I can't find the words that my heart knows and wants to say to you. But I want you to know how much I love you, and how very much I appreciate that beautiful woman you brought backstage. I was standing there winning the first measure. I can't remember what contest it was now, but you brought Betty out on stage, and she looked better than the Miss America that won that year. And I think she still does. Anyway, I want you to know I love you both, and I consider it a great honor and a privilege to tell you how much I love you here in front of everybody today. And know just how much I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
So it happened to be that the 24th of September 2010 was the 27th anniversary of the Olympia I had the honor to put on in Munich, Germany in 1983. This was a dream of mine to do ever since I saw a picture of this man in the mid-60s, and we all admired Larry Scott and later on Sergio Oliver. And I had a walk through Munich in the early 70s with Arnold, and you know how positive Arnold is about future and plans and visions. And I talked about the idea to have the Olympia one day in the Olympia Hall in Munich. And he said, impossible. It is too big now and you can't do it. And I always had the dream, and I knew I will do it one day, and it worked out, and I did it. And to see Lee Haney here on this table in front of me, it was his first Olympia, and he was really pissed because he took only third. Frank's last Olympia, and so this was history. He then became the record holder. He beat Arnold's record, and it was Frank Zane's last history. I was 3 times the judge at the Olympias when Frank Zane competed, and so it is an endless history, but it's all because of you. You created all that, including Arnold, whom I brought from Austria, Graz, to Munich. I was his boss at that time. Hard to imagine, but it's true. So he was the trainer in the gym I operated as manager. And I wrote you letters about Arnold, and then he won the first title, the Mr. Universe in London, an amateur. And the following year, the professional. And then you knew there's something going on with this guy, and you brought him over, and the rest is history. But you are the man, you are really the true father of modern bodybuilding. We have the great Sandow, but you are the father of our time since the late 30s and 40s. And we all owe you everything we are today, we owe to you. But I would like to add that without your wonderful wife, everything would not even possible for you. Because she gave you all the power, and I know you remember very well when I saw the plate on your car in the mid-70s, and there was a word, to-do boy. And I asked Betty, what does this mean, to-do boy? And she explained it to me, and she said, I put it on because he has so much to do, he had no time, and she called him the to-do boy. So, Joe, I love you. You are my mentor in my work, in producing magazines. You have always been my mentor, my big idol. And actually, as I said, at the last occasion I had to speak, you are my spiritual father. And I wish you and Betty muchos años. Thank you very much. We love you.
Won every contest there was to win. So he said to Joe, where do I go from now, Joe? He said, what am I going to do? He says, there's nothing else I can win. And I popped up and said, well, why can't we have a contest like a boxing, like champions, where they have to knock one another off, and then they become a champion, a world champion. And Larry thought it was great. Joe said, yes, it's great. And we had different names. I don't know what your name was, Larry, but mine was the world champion bodybuilder. And Joe came and said, nah, those are corny names. They've been used before. And he picked up, and he never drinks beer. He drinks beer maybe once a year. He had beer, Olympia beer. And he said, this is it. This is it. That's the name I want, Olympia. And Larry said, my God, he says, I'm a Mormon. I'm an LDS, and you're going to name a contest, make a contest for me? A contest named after a beer? But anyway, that's totally
I didn't say my God. I didn't say it was Olympia. Come on. And you know, Joe, he never loses an argument. It's not Larry. Mr. Olympia, the mountain, Olympia. I'm like, I don't listen to Joe. But it was, anyway, that's the way it came about. It was a true story.
I needed you to know that.
From humble beginnings. All this thing was what it was. Thanks very much.
Okay, my name is Sergio Oliva. He gets so quiet. He thought I'm not going to come. And I say, I will be there. So before I introduce Joe, I want to talk about one special lady. She was my biggest fan and my biggest friend all my life. And she knows Betty Weider. When I came to Joe, I was already Sergio Oliva. There's no need to secret, and everybody knows that. I win all the titles, but not the Mr. Olympia. Joe and Ben, they create this fantastic title, Mr. Olympia, that you really want to be in it. Even if you are Mr. Olympia contender. But when you are Mr. Olympia, you go home and weigh a pound, because you are on top of every title. And Joe and I, we have a little different, because everybody know that. We're two brands, two different persons. And that's what makes this country the biggest nation in the world. Agreement and disagreement, but there no need to be fight. So the time go by, I find my law, and I said, I gotta go and talk to the old man. No disrespect, this is one old man to another old man. And I said, I gotta go talk to Joe because he not even know that I always hold a 3-star for him. First of all, to create this magnificent title of Mr. Olympia. Second, for not let the bodybuilding all over the world to die. He maintained the bodybuilding until we claim all over. And we don't have to wear a band that says, I'm Sammy Sosa or I'm Mr. Magoo. We don't need any of those. You just stand out and your physique do the talking for you. Thank God for that. On my side, I didn't speak clear 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and I still got a problem with the English. But Joe and Ben, God have them in heaven. I don't know how they did it. They sit down and they come out with this Mr. Olympia. And Larry won. I come in and I was the first one 3 years in a row. And one of the Mr. Olympia, they're not even bothered to come in this state. And I started going like, crazy. Everything come out like crazy, like crazy, like crazy. So I told my son and my daughter, I'm going to go to California or Las Vegas, whatever, and I'm going to talk to Joe. I wanted peace. He always been my idol, because even before, people know you for Sergio Oliva. But after I won the first Mr. Olympia, they no longer calling you Sergio. They're calling you the Met. And it was created right after my second Mr. Olympia. Thanks to him. So, Joe, my friend, I only want to say that thanks to my Lord and my Lord Jesus Christ, I'm in peace with the whole world, and you and your wife are still my friend. I thank you for everything. Yeah. Okay? Okay? Thank you. Thank you, my beautiful girl.
As I sit here, you know, I don't think that we can never give Joe enough appreciation, because basically Joe made us the men that we are. And I wouldn't be the man that I am if it wouldn't have been for Mr. Joe Weider. You know, there wouldn't be no bodybuilding, there wouldn't be no Miss Olympias, and most important of all, we wouldn't be, some of us wouldn't been made millions of dollars. That's the most important thing here. So, but I'm all of that because of that man sitting right over there, and like I just said, I could never thank him enough. And you know, my Joe Guido moment basically goes back to when I was in college, because I used to pick up magazines from time to time, and I see these big guys, and then I immediately put it down, because I'm like, oh no, I could never be that big. I could never be somebody like that. One day I just picked up one and, like, you know, thought, well, I'm gonna read it anyway, just to marvel at these guys, because you know they were somebody to marvel at. And the next thing I know, I started reading about the guy Joe Weider and all the Weider principles and all this stuff, and how he's taught all these guys all this stuff. I'm like, wow. I'd love to meet that guy one day, but, you know, I don't think it'll ever happen, but, you know, that's going to be always a dream of mine or something like that. So, all in all, yeah, I started training at this gym one day. This guy told me I could be world champion, and I'm like, man, whatever. Anyway, this guy gave me a free membership to the gym if I competed, and that's how I basically got into the sport, you know, because I want to make one thing clear, that I never want to be a bodybuilder, and my story is basically about the power of God and how God has a purpose for each and every one of us in life. And so I thought, well, you know, I'll just work out at the gym for this free membership, and that'll be good for me. And you know, this will probably never go anywhere, but I never really wanted to, because all I really wanted was the free membership at the gym. Anyway, so I just kept competing, you know, I never even dreamed about meeting Joe, because I thought that would never happen in a million years. So I just figured, you know, I'm going to just work out and get this free membership and just continue to do that. And all of a sudden, I could sit here and speak on it all day, but all of a sudden one day I was doing the show, and I was doing pretty good in the show, and after the prejudging, Mr. Joe Weider came up to me. You know, I'm really kind of blown away, and I'm in shock, and I'm in awe, and I really don't know what to say. And I'm like, is he really talking to me? Because I always wanted to meet him, and I thought it never happened. I'm like, wow, he's actually talking to me. This is amazing. And then he said, man, you could be a great champion one day. You go all over the world, meet people. I'm like, man, I meet Joe Weider. I think he's a little cuckoo. He think I could be a champion. So
make a long story short, I go on, and the show is over with, and Joe comes up to me after the show, and I told you you're going to be a great champion one day. I was like, Mr. Weider, you were right. So we go on and, you know, go converse back and forth over the phone, and, you know, Joe like, you really need to come over here and you know, be with this company and let me show you some things, teach some things. Like, okay, sounds like a great idea. And all of a sudden, you know, I'm still in shock and I'm still in awe because I just won the Mr. Olympia, and I'm talking to Joe Weider, some guy that I wanted to meet. I thought it never happened in a million years. And all of a sudden, he signs me to a 6-year contract. And I'm really blown away now. I'm really in shock and I'm really in awe. I'm highly motivated. And I just want to say one thing. Joe Weider had more confidence in me and more knew more about myself than I knew about myself, knew more about me than I knew about myself, and had so much respect for me that he gave me a 6-year contract. And a lot of people don't know, but that's really what kept me going all these years. If it hadn't been for Joe having all that respect and confidence in me, I think that's really what kept me winning all those years, because I didn't want to let Joe down, because, you know, Joe was somebody, like I said, that I always looked up to, and I never thought in a million years that I never meet, and I'm still in shock, and I'm still in awe when I'm around him. So it's still to this day kind of hard for me to speak to him and talk to him, but you know, I've always looked up to him, and every chance I get, you know, I would go by his house and I would bring my friends over, and Joe would treat them like, you know, with the most respect that you would ever treat somebody. And that just even made it more hard, it put me in more shock and more awe, and just made me have that much more respect for him. And then I have these stories where you know, would show me poses and stuff. But I think some of the greatest advice he ever gave me was one day after a show, he's like, "You seem to be having a little problem with your stomach there." I'm like, "Oh yeah, Joe, so what do you think I should do?" He said, "I think you should wear your workout belt more often." Like, what? Workout belt? But you know, Joe Weider, so you know, Joe says something, you're gonna do it. And I like to say this, I put that workout belt on from the moment I started training till I quit working out. And the next year, people were coming up to me and said, "How did you get your stomach to shrink down a little bit?" I'm like, just a little advice somebody gave me, because I ain't trying to give away my secrets. But until that, I wore that workout belt, Joe, from the time you told me to put it on until I won my last Olympia, and I still do that today. So, in closing, I just like to say, because I could probably sit here and talk all day, because I got a lot of stories of all the people that I brought to you that you've met over the years, and some of the bodybuilders that I brought over your house, and you treat them just like, you know, they were just one of the guys you've known all your life with so much love and respect. That, you know, I never really had a father, and I kind of like, you're kind of like a father figure to me. So, in closing, I'd just like to say, I love you very much, Father Joe.
Was organized by Albert Busek at the arena that he always wanted to do it at. And sorry, I lost my voice a couple days ago. I talked a lot, but I think you'll get the message. But so, yes, I won the Miss Olympia 1983 in München, promoted by Albert Busek, put on a great event. One good incident that happened during that show, the night before, I called Joe Weider, and I said, "Joe, I want you to check my condition." And Joe said, "Come on right up, come on right up." So I walked up, Joe and Betty were in the room, took my shirt off. Joe looked at me and goes, "Wow, finally you put it together." So Joe has so much love and passion about the sport of bodybuilding. Nobody had that passion. And I was discussing that earlier with Jean Bailey. So Joe immediately grabbed the phone and said, hey, I want you, photographer, my nephew Jean Bailey, he called everybody. He said, I want you to photograph Samir. He's at his best shape ever. So Joe has so much love for the sport. And in fact, I came in from Lebanon because of Joe Weider. I picked up Muscle Builder magazine when I was 16 years old. I was on my way to watch the movie, you all remember, The Good and the Bad and the Ugly, by Clint Eastwood. But I was my younger brother. I picked up that magazine from the newsstand. It says Arnold on the cover. There's two beautiful girls on each side. I picked up that magazine. It was all, that's it. Forgot about the movie. I bought the magazine because I couldn't afford them both. So I took Muscle Builder at the time and I came home, and that was the very first day when I got interacted with Joe Weider. And he, from that day, became my hero. Really. That was my dream, to come to the United States and meet Joe Weider. I learned English because of Joe Weider. I used to take my dictionary. I studied French for 15 years because in Lebanon, as you all know, Lebanon was a French colony, so we mostly advocated the French language. So I used to take my Webster dictionary with me to my class, checking out what's steak, what's milk, and all that. And so, so Joe have impacted everybody's life. He reached the Middle East, he reached the Far East, he reached everybody in this world. So Joe, I got to be around you for quite some time in your offices in Woodland Hills. It was so much fun. It was so, I could push the button, rewind, replay. It's like, it's in my head. Because nobody really loved bodybuilding and care. I know you're a businessman, but you love the sport more than just money. So, from the bottom of my heart, I just want you to know that I love you so much. Really do. And I think Mrs. Weider, she's wonderful. Betty always looked good. I picked up all the magazines. I went to my newsstand guy and I said, I want all the old magazines. So I got them all. I had the entire collection. So I wish you a very, very happy birthday, and may God bless you, and I hope in 10 years from now, we'll come back and do this again. Okay?
Tang and I have a little surprise for Joe, but before we do, I don't have all the experiences and stories that these former Mr. Olympians do. My experience goes back to Joe when I started the NPC, and we were fighting the AAU back in those days. And I just started the NPC, and I said, how are we ever going to defeat these guys from York Barbell? Joe says, don't worry. I'm going to give you all the support you need, Jim, in our magazines. From that day on, he never let me down, and I tried not to let him down. He's always been in my corner, and as everyone in this room says, I love him. I really appreciate all you've done for me. Happy birthday, Joe.
Thank you.
What we have here, like I said, my good friend Robin, actually, Robin did more of this work than I did, I got to tell you. We have this picture from last night on stage. You with all the former champions, signed by everybody.
Joe, we all love you. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to share this moment with you. We love you.
Oh, I love everyone. After being here when everybody had to say, I don't know what I should say. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joe. Happy birthday to you. right.
Well, why don't we all raise our champagne glasses and have a birthday toast to Joe and to all of his friends. Let's just all raise our glasses.